Our next guest is Marty Hayes from the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. How's it going, Marty?
It's going great. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. So what is the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network?
Well, we're a 12,500 person membership organization. The concept behind the network is that if one of us is involved in an act of self-defense and we're being prosecuted or sued because of that act of self-defense, then the network gets behind the person and helps them with their legal defense.
Oh, wow. I think it's very interesting. I love organizations or groups like this because I think a lot of people don't realize the implications of actually having to use your gun in a self-defense scenario. And the kind of, how do you say, the things that you don't think about.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm a firearms instructor, I used to view my whole job as far as teaching people the idea that what gun is best to use for self-defense and how best to use it. Mm-hmm. Now, since starting the network 9 years ago, I've added in, and how is this all going to play out legally? Yep. And it's really kind of an interesting progression in my own personal development.
And in what way?
Well, I look at the choice of guns people use, the choice of tactics they use, and say, how is this going to play out in court if it ever has to go to court? For example, I've started carrying a 10 millimeter semi-automatic pistol. The reason being is because I don't want to have to shoot somebody more than once or twice. So many times I have seen cases where people have to shoot 4, 5, 6 times, and they end up shooting their adversary in the back, and that's the one that sends them to court. Yeah. And so I personally choose, I'm not going to do it. I'll take the more abusive recoil, but I'll shoot them once or twice and stop.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. And there's so many different variables that come into play. And there is no like cut and paste job that you can kind of parse out when it comes to what's going to happen to you after you use your gun in self-defense. Because like you pointed out, you could be that one person that who pulls their gun and has to use it in self-defense. And then in a string of fire, the person does happen to turn their back. And then it looks like, wait a minute, did you shoot this person while they were running away? Or no, did you just get lost in the fact that somebody was trying to kill you, and then you engage in a string of fire, only to realize, oh, wait a minute, they stopped and turned away. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. People can't stop immediately.
Yeah.
It takes about a quarter of a second from the impulse of the brain when they say, I got to stop shooting now, to where the trigger finger quits pulling the trigger. And in that time, the person can turn around and they could get that shot in the back. And the shooter was absolutely justified in sending that impulse to pull the trigger when he did, and then the guy turned around. And that's what we need to go to a court and explain.
Yep. And then on top of that, you have to deal with the potential jury that doesn't know much in the way of firearms, because what ends up happening is you'll get people who think, okay, well, the moment somebody gets shot, they automatically die and stop. So why would you need to continue to keep shooting? Not realizing that, no, people die from gunshots because of a loss of blood pressure, typically speaking. And so, I think it's tough, man. It's tough because there's so many different variables, and you can get the one DA or prosecutor who decides, you know what, I'm going to exploit the lack of knowledge that some people have. For instance, we can even go so far as to say your gun, your choice in 10 millimeter. I'm just going to I'm going to put my lawyer hat on, and then if I were going to try you, I'd say, you know what, well, this guy went out here and tried to find the most powerful gun he possibly could because he wanted to shoot someone. That was his whole goal, and his whole mission was to find the most powerful gun and use that gun to kill someone, right? And it's preposterous in our world, but
if he wants to bring that argument up in my trial, that opens the door for me explaining about all of the expert witness cases I've worked on. And there's been a dozen or two, where the individual was shot in the back justifiably, and they end up being prosecuted unmeritoriously. Yep. And so if he wants to be that stupid to go there, then let's go there.
And then the thing too is the expenses involved, and I'm assuming that's what this network is here for, involved in getting an expert witness. Expert witnesses don't come cheap.
No, the current range $1,000 to $2,000 a day.
Yeah.
And some of the top ones are even more.
Absolutely.
And that's why we exist. I grew up in the firearms training business. I taught for 20 plus years through my other company. But I was never able to satisfy the question, well, what's going to happen in a case of self-defense? I don't have $100,000 sitting around.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're going to do the best you can.
Yeah.
But out of that, experience, I started thinking, there's something I can do personally, and so I went to law school. 2003, I started up law school. Took 4 years of part-time work. I was going to become the guy that my students come to.
Yeah.
you know. And then in the meantime, in those 4 years, I thought, well, we could do something different, bigger, better. We could start this nationwide organization for armed citizens that if they're involved in an incident, they've got the power of the network behind them, not just their own mom and dad and their bank account.
Gotcha. So it's safe to say you started this program on your own?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was my idea. Because I was in the training business, I knew a lot of the top trainers in the country, Masad Ayub, John Farnham, Dennis Tueller, Tom Givens, these guys that I told what I wanted to do, and they came on board as advisory board members, and which gave us the credibility in the training industry. Just said, okay, if these guys are backing Marty, then maybe I should take a serious look at it. And for that, I'll always be grateful for their willingness to jump on board.
Absolutely. So talk to us about your educational program that you guys hold.
Oh yeah, we've got first of all, the key to winning an acquittal in court is to be able to show how you were an armed citizen who followed the law, understood the concepts behind what you're facing, and that you could document your education so you can introduce that in court if you needed to. And so we put together an education package. Currently consists of 8 DVDs plus Masad Ayub's book, Deadly Force. And we send that out to all of our new members so they can start educating themselves and, more importantly, or I should say as importantly, documenting that education. So if one of them is prosecuted and they want to try to bring up the fact that you didn't know what you're doing, well, excuse me, this is what I knew and why I had to do what I did.
Yeah. So have you, in your experience, found that in some cases where you have people who have been involved in self-defense shootings that have gone to court, where you had the client actually having to educate their attorney about firearm-related topics and issues and just overall firearms education in and of itself?
For the most part, every case involves the client having to educate the attorney, usually though through their expert that they end up choosing.
Yeah.
Because most considerations or most cases involve bringing in an expert or two, and then it becomes that expert to not only educate the attorney as far as how to proceed with this case, but then when it gets to trial, to educate the jury.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a weird way, through somebody's, this is a stretch, but through somebody's misfortune, you almost get put in a position where you can actually educate and advocate for firearms in a sense whenever you are talking to a panel or jury of people who don't know anything about it. And also in your experience, have you seen some rather creative ways in which an attorney goes about trying to pick a jury, dear or dire, with respect to finding somebody who's going to be sympathetic to their case?
Yeah, it's the usual stuff.
Yeah.
They start talking, they want to weed out all of the victims of crime.
Gotcha.
Has there been anybody in your family who's been a victim of gun violence? Well, they weed them out. Anybody a member of the NRA, they weed them out. And so what the defense attorney is trying to get at least a neutral slate, if not an anti-gun slate.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, not the defense,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
prosecution. Then what the defense attorney does is they try to mitigate that and try to get some people that are gun owners, maybe have a concealed carry license, and really what jury selection has become really isn't about selecting the jury. It's about getting your theory of the case in front of the jury.
Gotcha. Yep, absolutely. So for anybody interested, how does one go about joining?
ArmedCitizensNetwork.org is our website. Very easy to find. If they can't manage that, Google Marty Hayes. I'll pop right up there, and you can track me down from there.
Okay. And generally speaking, what expenses are usually involved with the membership?
$135 for the first year. That covers the 8 DVDs that we send out. And we've got 2 more in the works too, just so you know.
Okay.
And then we renew it $95 a year, and all of those little tiny renewals and all those memberships have added up to the point where we have almost $1 million now in our legal defense fund.
Gotcha.
That's what we use to defend our members and to help them with their defense.
That's amazing, man. I really appreciate the work that you're out there doing for people who conceal carry, who open carry, and find themselves in a precarious situation of defending themselves for a justified shoot. Thank you very much, Marty. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Just to make sure it's clear, they have to be a part of the network before the incident, not after.
So for all of you out there who think you're slick, you heard it from the man himself. All right. Thank you very much, Marty, and you have a good one.
I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime. And coming up next, some of the hottest guns that Eagle Imports is making available here in the U.S. And we'll be back.